Hello, sports fans. Welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show. We love what we do. We love that you enjoy and are part of our day. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. We always get the down and dirty of sports and what's happening in the world of sports and why it's so great and wonderful. And I could go on, I don't know, for probably days about what is really fascinating about the world of sports. It's been certainly a part of my life, really, almost from inception. I went home with a football as a baby. My dad gave me a football, and just never changed. Now, what has changed is college football, and it's fascinating what's going on. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dissection. How in the heck did Indiana do this? You know what went on? What's the magic sauce here? How it's just so improbable. How in the heck did Indiana win the college football national championship? I absolutely love it. I love Kurt Signetti, his whole demeanor, his whole approach, everything about him. It's unique, it's fresh. In some ways, it reminds me a little bit of Mike Leach. Maybe not as kind of off the rip, but there's an authenticity to who he is. I think he's a very real person. I think he's not hiding behind the coach speak and all. I think he wants to tell you exactly um, the way he thinks about this, how he's gone about this, and it's just so refreshing. But I want to play this clip and get into how I think Indiana did the improbable.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
I just love that. I absolutely love that. And I think so often people are afraid to say that. They're afraid to have that big dream. They're afraid to say, "Yeah, we're going to win a national championship. We're going to win at Indiana. We're gonna," and I think so much of why people aren't willing to do that is because what if they don't? I really think I think it prevents most of us from succeeding in life because we want to think we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of the rejection. So many people can't do sales because they just can't pick up the phone. The phone is so massively heavy that and it's heavy just simply for one reason: someone says no. And flipping no, flipping rejection on its ear, figuring out how to be driven through rejection, through failure, and turning it into your success really is the magic sauce of life. I love when people do it. I love when people just defy the odds, when they do things that people think are impossible to do. And I don't know why we are so limiting, and why we're so judgmental, and why we're so harsh, and why we're so. And I don't think people are judging Indiana. I think they're scratching their head and going, "Wait a minute, how did this happen? How in the world did this?" And I don't even think it's how in the world did we let it happen. I just think people said, "How in the world did it happen?" And there was this fascinating article in CBS Sports, and they talked about the players that came with Kurt Signetti from JMU. JMU is kind of a program that's trying to find itself. It's trying to expand. It's trying to grow. And Kurt Signetti had tremendous success there. And I have to believe that it's one of those situations where you have a philosophy and you go, I want to try it out. I want to just see if this actually really works, and actually people buy into it more than just it's just some crazy harebrained idea I have. And I'm sure that through his years of coaching, because he's not young, he's not a new young fresh coach. He's a guy who's been through, he coached with Nick Saban. He's been through a lot of different situations. And I wonder if a place like JMU, it's like, no one's gonna fault me if I just go and try this, if I just experiment, if I kind of get into my crazy laboratory and just come up with a culture, a philosophy, a mindset of how to do things. I don't think it's overly magical, like he's tapped into some strange phenomenon that none of us are aware of. He gets in he looks at the astrology, goes into the cosmic parts of space, or he gets into some Zen I think it's a lot of understanding human nature and understanding, and this is what I believe, and I think he just said, I have these players, I have these coaches, I have an expectation, and I let people know what that expectation is. He just said, I win. Like, and he's not ashamed, he's not embarrassed, it's not something that he hides behind, that they go, well, we have our team goals this year, and well, we can't talk about them. But we have them there. And there's this power of like speaking things into existence. But here's where I think it's different. And this is the part of sports that I love. I think he spoke of it as if it already happened, that he had already programmed his subconscious mind into a different reality. And I think he brought everyone along for the ride. I don't know if he just did this by accident. I don't know if he was taught this. I don't know if he developed this, but he tapped into something absolutely critical. And that is your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. You can create whatever um, world that you want, and that world is Indiana wins. And people are like, "Oh, that's just insane." But he doesn't speak of it as this insane thing. He speaks of it as if it's already happened. He speaks of it as an expectation. I win, and he's making a declaration, and that's just what I do. I don't care. We have Jim Fannin on the show, and he tells this great story, and it's an awesome story, and it's about John McEnroe. And of course, John McEnroe was playing. Jim Fannin was a tennis coach, and one of his top players was playing in a tournament. He was ranked three in the world, and number one and number two weren't at the tournament. Looked like his guy was going to win. They get to the semifinals, quarterfinals, somewhere close to the championship, and they're playing a guy who's ranked 125 in the world, lefty, nothing special, kind of funky serve, just nothing. And so it's like, hey, we're on, I think we're on to the semifinals, or they knew they were going to just blow this guy out. Well, this guy shows up and he's just nothing like the 125th ranked player in the world. He's throwing rackets, he's got this attitude, he's got this just kind of mantra about him that's just different. And it was John McEnroe. And years later, after John McEnroe became who he was having dinner with Jim, and Jim said, "What happened to you way back when, and when you beat my guy?" And he said, You were 125 in the world. You didn't have any business beating my guy." And John McEnroe said, "I wasn't 125 in the world. I was number one. My ranking just hadn't caught up with me yet." And that's that bold declaration. And it's not a statement of hoping and wishing, I wish I'd win. I hope I win. you know, God willing, we'll win. He said, "No, I win." And what he did is he got players, because this is so fascinating. Like, he doesn't have a roster of five-star blue chip athletes. He has a roster of players who win. Like, they just win. And that's the bottom line with what they've done at Indiana. Now, he brought players with him from JMU. I mean, think of that, and that culture of and these players understood, and they went to Indiana, and they had already bought into the culture. They had someone who saw something in them, who believed in them, who set a standard and set an expectation, and just said, this is what we're going to do. I mean, that was one of the things I think, uh, I appreciated most about the great coaches I have, and I think of Coach Shula, who won more games than anyone in the NFL, and how from day one he walked in the door, and there was an expectation, and he had a culture about him. And people can argue and say, well, Coach Shula never changed. You never, and that to me was the beauty of everything, is you always understood how you stood with him, how where what the expectation was to win a Super Bowl. And this is how we go about doing it. We're going to out execute people. We're going to give you sound fundamental footballs, and it's up to you to execute. And and it was amazing how that happened. And I just, I was amazed when I started playing at how easy the game was, and it was easy because of how much time and preparation had gone into preparing me to actually play. Bum Phillips used to say of Don Shula, he can take his'n and beating urine, and he can take urine and beating his'n. And that's because Coach Shula just understood this, and I think it's marvelous, I don't know if Kurt Signetti, again, figured this out, learned it, whatever, but he's tapped into it. And I don't think this is a one and done type of thing. I think that there's a real chance of wherever he is, he's going to win. And it looks like he's going to stay at Indiana. And I think it's great. But he's got these players and he's got these coaches who've bought into this. And so it begs the question for me, is culture the absolute essential aspect of having a great program? Because I think Nick Saban did the same thing at Alabama. I think the difference with he had amazing players. Like he just had, but there was a culture, there was an expectation, there was a standard, there was, Nick Saban probably told all of his players, "That's just what we do at Alabama. We win. We just win." And it's more than just making that statement. It's about because the standard, right? And so it's about how you prepare. It's how you see the game. It's how you react in the game. It's how it's how you execute a play. It's the tempo. It's the pace. It's the diligence with which you go at actually um, you know just every part of what you do in the program. And I find it fascinating why more people don't figure this out. Like it's mind blowing to me how and maybe it's just that everyone can't. Maybe it's I just remember leaving the Miami Dolphins and how smart everything was that was done there, and going to other teams, it's like, "Oh, you don't do it this way? You don't this isn't." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And what I realized is everyone doesn't know. Everyone just doesn't maybe necessarily have the capacity. I think they do. I just don't think I think it goes back to, you know, people in life either play to win or they play to not lose. And it's a massive divide. I mean, it's as big as the Grand Canyon, those differing philosophies about sports. And so much of it is, I want to preserve my job. So I'm gonna just kind of, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm gonna CYA everything. It's his fault. It's not my fault. That guy's gonna get let go before I'm gonna fire that guy. I'm gonna bench this player. I'm gonna do all these things to preserve myself and to preserve my job at all cost. And then there are other people who just say, I'm just all about winning. I'm all about culture. I'm all about um, you know, just doing it the right way. And if I fail, I fail feeling good about the decision, the person that I am, the way that I am, as opposed to kind of hiding behind your shell and not really giving the most of yourself. And I've witnessed this with people in all aspects, in sports, in life, in whatever. I just don't think everyone has the same passion or the same commitment to just say, "Look, this is all I do. I just win. I just do this." Now, I think one of the players that Kurt Signetti probably did the best job on is Freddie Mendoza. Like this is just fascinating. And here this guy, two-star recruit, barely gets recruited, goes to Cal, and then he transfers, and I'm just like, there was something they saw in Freddie Mendoza, right? Um, and it's Fernando Mendoza. Why am I calling him Freddie Mendoza? Fernando Mendoza. I apologize. Anyways, Fernando Mendoza, and it's it's one of those things where, in a lot of he saw traits. He saw something, the film said something to him about decision making, accuracy, footwork, all of these things. And I'm sure there's a whole list of, and it's amazing how the position of quarterback is one that I don't want to say you don't have to be the best athlete in the world. You know, I wouldn't call Mendoza. I wouldn't call him this, dual threat quarterback, and but I would call him an opportunistic quarterback. Yeah, the quarterback draw in the game was a designed run type of thing, but it's about decision making, and it's really more about kind of personality. And there's just this fascinating part about kind of the the temperament of someone playing that position, and how your temperament has so much to do with your success. And the temperament is, do we believe in this guy? And the temperament's different. Some guys are more cerebral. Some, they're just kind of that cold, gunslinging assassin, doesn't say a whole lot. And then there's the very demonstrative ones that are just kind of, in your face and charge the beach kind of person. And then there's kind of the guy that's, just he just gets the job done. And I think some of the comparisons is like to a guy like Kirk Cousins or someone along those lines. And having success in football as a quarterback is more than just athleticism. So Mel Kiper thinks Fernando Mendoza is the number one pick in the draft. Here's what he had to say.
So you have Mendoza going number one. That seems not to be a surprise at all. What was your takeaway from the championship game the other night, and what is your sense of the Raiders' certainty in taking him at one?
Yeah, pretty much a lock for me. I know Peter can talk more about that, but I think you look at never flinching. I mean, this kid cracked the code like you always talked about. He was spectacular throughout the season. He cut the sack total at Cal from 41 down to 18 during the regular season. He improved in the areas he needed to. 35 starts he benefited from, experience being the best teacher. Think about the biggest games, the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State, the 3 playoff games. He's at 10 touchdowns, only 1 pick, 9 passing, 1 rushing, and a 74% completion percentage. This kid is ready for the NFL because he benefited from 35 starts. He's 22 years of age. He'll be 23 in October. Think about the Raiders and that division and the AFC in general with all those great quarterbacks. It's a heck of a place to start. And as a future with Mendoza being brought in as the number 1 pick overall for the Raiders would look bright for Raider Nation, I believe. And I think this is an obvious pick. I would lock it in with pen with exclamation points after.
Wow.
Wow is right. So that was Mel Kiper on Get Up on ESPN. Look, it's so being the first pick in the draft a lot of times is not necessarily, you won or you were on the best team, or it's so much about athleticism, athletic ability. The draft is so much about kind of the very best athlete, the very best player at that position. You can't coach athleticism, you can't coach speed, you can't coach all of these things, but you can't coach dumb things out of quarterbacks. I mean, it's just hard to do. So so the way the draft goes, you go, no, the way probably the production or what he'll be like as a player, I think it's a lot like Bo Nix. I don't think Bo Nix was necessarily everyone's first pick in the draft, but he's certainly a guy who's you could say the same thing about Drake May. You could say a lot about some of these guys who, I mean, Brock Purdy was irrelevant, and he's been quite successful. But here's the thing that that I think is important, and it was very similar to like Joe Burrow, right? But Joe Burrow is just as far as like just arm talent, just was off the charts. But his season was, he had those big games. He had the conference championship. He had the playoffs. He had a national championship. And there's something about that. There's something about really understanding how to win. Now, it's hard to win in the NFL because everyone you play every single week is like playing a playoff game. It's like playing in your national championship when you're like everyone's good. And I think Fernando Mendoza has the ability to adapt. Clearly, he has, but he just has that winning effort, that winning attitude, and I think it just comes from his coach. Oh, it's so hard when you're the first pick in the draft, and it's so hard because um, you go to a crappy team, and it's like you go to the Raiders, and it's like, whoo, it really scares you. And everyone's like, well, Tom Brady's there. Well, Tom Brady's not there. Tom Brady's not coaching. Tom Brady is off broadcasting, and I really question how much of an impact does he really have on the day to day environment. When you're an owner of a team, you go out and you say, okay, we're going to create a structure, an organization, a scouting department, a general manager. We're going to put a coach, and players and all these things. And Tom Brady's, I highly doubt is going to be into the day to day minutia of running the Raiders. I mean, really, it's like I have money, and these franchises just go up ridiculous in their price and their value and everything. So I think it's more of an investment per se. I don't think it even matters how well the Raiders do. Dictates how well Tom Brady is as the owner of the team, or one of the owners of the team. It's just a built-in. It's crazy. It's a built-in investment that's worth gold, and you don't even have to be good. But I wouldn't want to go to the Raiders, so I don't think it's a very good team. Now, so with all this said, and everyone goes, man, Indiana kind of turned college football on its ear, and yes, they did, and yes, they have. But I actually think that Miami has had a bigger impact on the expansion of the college playoffs and how good it actually is. And by that I mean, look, Indiana was one of those teams that from the get-go was highly regarded. Like they kind of made a splash early and off they go. And Miami was a team that was kind of on the bubble and clearly would have been way outside of the college football playoffs in the past. It wouldn't even been considered. And so here's this team that really, as the season developed, really found itself. And what they did in the playoffs and who they beat and how they beat them and where they beat was just absolutely impressive. So, um, and had they not been a part of the expanded playoffs, the playoff committee, for whatever reason, saw something in Miami, saw where they were playing, saw where they were trending. I hope. I still think it's really scary to the subjectiveness of picking these teams, like who gets in and who gets out, and you can argue that there's no sense to any of it. So, but for whatever reason, they got in and they proved that yeah, we can win a championship. This can be exciting. This can be good by actually getting on the field and doing it. And what a great thing that is, as opposed to like that's what I loved about this playoff is like I gained a tremendous amount of respect for a Miami team with how they won and really how they played. I mean, this was a close game. This was a great game. And they came within, one drive of winning the championship. I mean, they miss a field goal. They have a punt block. It's really close. This is not Indiana just outclassed them, out whatever them. It was anyone's game all the way up until the very end of the game. But Miami, to me, did more, I think, for everyone else in college football to say, hey, if you let us in, it's we may go somewhere, we may make some noise, we may go play for a national championship, and I think that gives more teams hope than all of what Indiana did, and it's remarkable. And what Indiana did, it's insane, it's awesome, it's incredible, but I still think Miami had a bigger impact on how this college football playoffs was and will continue. All right, today is just a fun free flow day. So when we come back, we're going to have discussions about Mike McDaniels and the quarterback at Duke, dude. This is just not right. It's not in the spirit of what's going on here. He's getting sued by Duke is suing its players. Like, this is the madness that's college football, and all this. Now we just got so much. You don't want to miss it. Well, so stick around when the Down and Dirty returns here on YouTube.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. This is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. So glad you could join our show, be a part of what we're doing. We love it. We love bringing it to you, and I hope you enjoy it as well. We get into the good stuff, the down and dirty stuff in sports. Of course, oh boy, there's just so much going on as far as coaches and the drama. You know, you have Jerry Jones. He goes, "I think I'm addicted to drama." And he had this whole thing with, with the whole America's Team and that documentary, which I just love to watch. I love to watch first world problems. I love the drama of all of it, and so I'm just really fascinated by, all these crazy, dramatic things that go on in the NFL, and coaching is certainly one of those. Now, the Los Angeles Chargers, it appears, have hired Mike McDaniel, who was the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And a lot of these coaches, it feels like, are, when they go into maybe their end of season meeting or kind of the download, let's kind of talk about where things are, what it looks like, and all that stuff. And it feels like some of these guys are making statements and it's not the right answer, right? It's like, no, wrong answer, and they get flushed down the toilet kind of thing. And they make an assessment. And of course, it felt like that was the case with Mike McDaniel. It felt like it might have been the case with Sean McDermott in Buffalo, and just kind of their assessment of where the team was, what needed to happen moving forward. And it wasn't the right answer for the coach. But one of the questions I guess I have with that is, so you take Mike McDaniel, and is it a step backwards for someone like that to go and be an offensive coordinator at another team? And does that create the image for you? Oh, that's just kind of all you are, or He couldn't hack it as a head coach, and so you take a step backward. Whereas some other coaches, they just said, I'm a head coach. That's who I am. That's what I do, and just deal with it. And I'll sit out for a while if that's not the case, because a lot of these guys will do that. And I think part of why they do it is they go, they probably make an assessment at the end of the season. Like, let's just say they get fired, and they go, okay, what jobs are open? Do any of them make sense for me? And you go, no, not really. But this one down the road, or maybe this one, if it changed, personnel wise, so much of it's about the quarterback. Do they have a quarterback? Do they have a guy that I really think I can work with, or is there someone coming up in the draft? Whatever. I find it fascinating that they say, I just want to coach. I don't care what I do. I don't, it doesn't matter to me. I'll take a job anywhere. I'll do anything. And then it begs the question of a guy, and see, Jim Harbaugh. We'll talk about John at another point, but because there's fascinating stuff going on there, where, well, I'll get into that in a minute, but I want to stay on Mike McDaniel here because there's some coaches that go, I don't want that in my culture. I don't want a guy looking for his next head coaching job, or I don't want to, or some people go, man, I love what Mike McDaniels has done and who he is, and I want that guy in the building. And there's some coaches just say, I don't care how many great coaches we get here, I want him in the building. I think Nick Saban was like that. I think maybe one of the strongest parts of Nick Saban was the people he surrounded himself with. It's stunning. It's staggering. And there's this whole comment about Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their philosophy is the head coach doesn't necessarily hire the assistants. And so you're kind of limited in getting the guys that you necessarily want to have in the building. And a lot of these coaches are okay to develop a coach and they move on. You talk about coaching trees and all this stuff. And it's just fascinating to me to see who picks what guy and why they do it. And I just and Mike McDaniels was certainly one of those situations. Now, John Harbaugh, and I thought this was kind of weird when he brought up the whole power reporting hierarchy, where he reports through the general manager to the owner of the team. And there's this there's this kind of concern with that type of relationship. Like when you have to address this on day one, when you have to and the addressing is, it's not a big deal. John Harbaugh just says, look, it's not a big deal. And it's like, no, it is a big deal because you brought it up. And if it wasn't a big deal, it would be something you just wouldn't talk about. Now, maybe someone asked him a question about it, he addressed it and what have you, but it's at some point it becomes a big deal one way or another. And they go, if they win, they go, oh boy, that was brilliant. What, that they actually had this relationship, and they, or they go, this is the downfall. This is the thing that created this whole drama and problem in the organization is this guy's reporting through the general manager, basically has no juice, has no purpose, has no say so. Why in the heck am I even here? Kind of mindset. So, and that happens, of course, when you're losing. But I'm fascinated about all of this, just because there's just so much ego that goes into this. There's so much, fighting for power in whether it's in an organization or even with teams. When I the later part of my career in the NFL, my agent was like, I want to go to the Dallas Cowboys. And my former college coach was there. I knew Troy Aikman was, there was a strong possibility of him getting injured. It was a system I knew well. I had a great visit when I went there. Great work, the whole thing. It was awesome. And he just like, no, you can't go there because the perception's going to be is that you're looked at as now a backup quarterback, and I want you to be looked at through the league as a starter. And by the way, there's a different definition of those two, which I didn't know. And I just found this all to be fat. I just never knew this. And there are some teams that go, yeah, there are guys we like, and they're just always backup quarterbacks. They're just an emergency. They're an insurance policy. There's someone that can get us through a very brief period of time. They're not a long term solution. They're not a long term answer. They're just there. And I'm just telling you, backup quarterback in the NFL might be the very best position you could ever have. A lot of guys played a lot of years, made a lot of money on that, especially today. Just it's insane that the amount of money these guys get, and good for them. I think it's awesome. I'm not knocking it at all. But the way the teams look at it, I think, is so interesting. Where you also have, if you have a veteran guy and you're like, do I really want to bring that guy in, because that's kind of a culture that we don't want to have, because this guy he's a starter. He's kind of maybe bad mouthing the starter and go, well, I'd do it differently. And he's that locker room lawyer, and he's politicking with all of the other offensive guys, especially the guys that aren't getting the ball thrown to him a lot. It's like, man, if I was in there, I'd be throwing you the ball all the time, because I don't know why he's not, and there's just kind of those little conversations going, and teams don't necessarily want that. They want a backup that's everybody's friend, and, oh, he's a nice guy, and we like him, and and all this stuff, and then he has to go play in the AFC Championship, and we'll see how much they like that guy at that point. And a lot of teams may go, maybe we wish we had a better guy, a more capable guy. And Jaron Stidham, I'm not saying he's not capable, but that certainly could be the perception, anyways. So it's all fascinating. Now, Sean McDermott is another one who apparently, he just said, look, we have to have better players. And his assessment was like, we can't win a Super Bowl unless we have better players. And I think the owner said, wait, you've got some pretty freaking good players there. We did go out and get you some help in some places, and no team is going to have all the answers. I mean, that's just the way the NFL works. It's the way the parity of everything just works that way. So you're not going to get that. And it's like, you can't win with Josh Allen, and you can't wish with the, not a knock on, but this was kind of a ripe year. You're not going up maybe against the Kansas City Chiefs or anything. You're like this, and I felt that way. I was like, that was the case, and it's one of those situations where with Sean McDermott, it wasn't a question of, is he a good coach, is he a bad coach, is he this, because they've had success in the playoffs, and you can argue maybe they need more time. Maybe they need, and sometimes no, they don't need more time. It's kind of reached its season. It reached its zenith. It's reached its peak, and just the way that it's presently put together, that's just all we're going to get out of it. We all need a break. We all need a fresh start, and that's scary because it could all crumble from that whole situation. And I'm not sure where the line is. Like, how long do you keep a coach? How long do you, have the patience? And what happens if you do, get a new coach? You look at Tony Dungy in Tampa. Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame coach. He's a guy that well respected in the NFL for years. Great assistant, great head coach, and he goes to Tampa. And I remember when he turned it all around. We played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they had some great players. They had Warren Sapp, they had Derek Brooks, they had John Lynch, they had Rondy Barber, or one of the Barber brothers, and a lot. I mean, there's a lot of Hall of Famers there, and Hardy Nickerson also was a great linebacker for him, and they had a really good defense. But what was funny is, you always felt you were going to beat them. And maybe it was the creamsicle uniforms. It was hard to take those uniforms seriously. I don't think anyone ever looked good in those uniforms. But what I did see with them is they just talked all the time. Like, they just talked trash, I mean, incessantly during the game. And you just rolled your eyes at it. Like, you didn't take it, you weren't intimidated by it. You're just like, you're the creamsicle Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, yeah, it's not working. And then Tony Dungy came in, and the guy shut up. They stopped talking. I they just didn't say it. They changed their to pewter, and they got a new stadium, and they got a pirate ship, and everything changed when Tony Dungy showed up. And you're like, "Oh." And all of a sudden you're seeing these defenses, you go, "What in the world is Tampa 2?" And it was weird. Like, it was like, what, the middle linebackers playing free safety. It was just insane. And then you got all the zone blitzes, and you got all this stuff, and Monty Kiffin and that whole deal. But what you got was this coach that you go, man, he's really good. And yet he couldn't win a Super Bowl there. And then he goes off, and in comes John Gruden. John Gruden just immediately goes and wins a Super Bowl. But John Gruden couldn't win a he just with the Raiders, so you just you just don't know, because sometimes maybe it is time to let a guy go, and maybe it was in Tampa, or maybe Tony would have figured it out, because he certainly figured it out when he got to the Indianapolis Colts. And you could say that about Bill Belichick. You could say it about really kind of all of these coaches that have, they've struggled. Bill Belichick will tell you that going to the Cleveland Browns was that galvanizing moment when he really figured out and found a foundation of what it really takes to succeed in the NFL. And by the way, Nick Saban was on that same staff. And so these whole coaching situations, to me, I just find absolutely fascinating. All right, we can take a break. When we come back, this to me, I read this, and you're seeing a lot of this. These schools and these athletes are suing each other over NIL deals. This one's a good one at Duke, because it's got a problem, and it's really problematic. And we'll talk about that. And then, of course, Baker Mayfield, man, he's throwing shade on his coach. So we'll get into that and so much more when the Down and Dirty continues.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone, and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Welcome to Kitbag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, we've got your team's colors running through our veins. From official replica kits to custom player prints of your favorite stars like Ronaldo, Messi, and Kane, Kitbag is your one-stop shop for all things football. Powered by Fanatics, we deliver to over 180 countries, ensuring you get the gear you need fast. For true football passion, think Kitbag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's KITBAG.com. Kitbag.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. Oh boy, so glad you could be a part of our show. I know I say that all the time, but I'm grateful, and I always want to have an attitude of gratitude. So I really am. I love doing this, and I love the people listen and want to be a part of it, and I appreciate it. I really do. Okay, this right now I think is, oh boy, a couple of things here that are kind of a little bit on the bonehead side, um, and we'll get into them a little bit. I don't know, kind of maybe I don't know. We'll see where it goes. So Darian Mensah, who did a tremendous job at Duke, won a ACC championship, got a supposedly 2-year $8 million deal with the Duke Blue Devils, and right at the last minute. So the transfer window is like from January 2nd to the 16th. And you have to put yourself in the window, right? And apparently once you're in the transfer portal, you can stay there really as long as you want, or as long as whatever. There are certain stipulations, coaching firings, just things that kind of open it up again. So you can't go into it once it's closed, but you can stay in it indefinitely. But there's also school enrollment and things like that you have to comply with if you're going to go to certain schools. And you want it, most players want to get out of the portal so they can enroll in school, so they can get into spring ball, they can do the whole thing, right? And sometimes it doesn't happen, whatever. But Darian Mensah apparently popped in the portal at the very end on the 16th of January. And that's kind of dirty pool. And it's dirty pool from the perspective of, the school's anticipating that you're going to be there. And if you're not going to be there, then they're like, well, fine, go, whatever. And if you go, at least we have an opportunity to go out and find someone, because quarterback is the commodity. Quarterback is the commodity in the portal, and you find a good one, and a Fernando Mendoza. By the way, Freddie Mendoza, because I kept saying Freddie Mendoza in the first, and I apologize because I don't even know Freddie Mendoza, but we found out he was a trombone player in Texas somewhere. So. Anyways, so Fernando Mendoza is a great example. All these, Carson Beck turned out to be a great player, and it's happened in the past. Will Howard, went from Kansas State to Ohio State. I mean, Cam Ward went to Miami. There's a lot of players who have been able to change the fortunes of programs more so than any other position. It's a huge benefit, right? So, but when you are expecting the guy to be there, you go all the way through the transfer portal, and he has an agreement. And this is kind of what the argument right now is, and there's several players having arguments about, if they sign an agreement, it says you can't leave, and maybe, and of course, the rules say you can. So it's violating the NCAA rules if a team's holding you back. That's the argument. But if you sign an agreement, which one holds more water, an agreement you sign. And again, that's the whole problem is these agreements are between these players and these universities. And you can argue, well, you fire coaches, and they have a contract. And I think it's kind of the buyout clause or there's maybe there's an arbitration clause, and that's what Duke's arguing, saying in the event that this does happen and this contract is violated, then it has to go to someone who ultimately will make the decision about what happens. And part of the decision could be the player's got to pay him back money. I can only imagine all of the different agreements and clauses and different aspects of the contract that are put into these deals, because you got to be able to protect yourself, because this is horrible. Like, and there's talk that Darian Mensah wanted to go to Miami, which has been in the playoffs, right? And so you're kind of waiting, and you don't know, and it's just a rough deal. But you kind of leave the school hanging, just kind of, and it's a sad deal in the sense that there's no appreciation for, hey, we just gave you, basically $4 million, and you're just going to walk out like, and again, I get it, because it's a transactional sport in a lot of ways. If coach doesn't do well, or they're down the road on a coach, so the team's going to get rid of people as it kind of cuts both ways. It just seems like the timing of it is not a good thing. We're going to see more and more of this as the portal and as all of this unfolds. And it just seems like, you have a standard contract. And again, that's the magic of having a labor agreement with management, that there's a standardized contract, and there are incentives, there are bonuses, there's certain clauses they can certainly add to a contract. For example, like you have to study so much. That was the Kyler Murray thing. Or they put weight clauses into contracts, like you have to be at a certain weight and you have to maintain that weight, kind of thing. So there's all kinds of stuff that's certainly out there. And but right now it seems like, yeah, pretty much anything you want to do, you can go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter. It's okay. And so Duke was saying, look, we're not letting you go right now. We may let you go. We may want you to go because, just kind of, maybe you're not the type of person that we like here, just because of some of the things you're doing. I don't know. But for now, we're not letting you go. We're not letting you go because we need to decide what happens here before we let you go. So that's kind of the argument. And I don't know that they're wrong here. I just think, just say, and I don't, because if you look at the player, he goes, look, I wanted to stay. I didn't realize this opportunity was going to come up, but it's like, well, how'd you know about that opportunity if you're not in the portal? Because if you're, it's almost better for someone to just go from day one, I'm in the portal. And maybe everyone should just go in the portal, or maybe there's some cases where you just go, if there's any question, I'm in the portal. And I wonder if that's what happened with Devin Dampier at the University of Utah, because he did not decide to come back, declare to come back, and he just kind of was out there, and hadn't said. Now, he didn't go into the portal, but he also didn't he didn't say, hey, I'm here. And maybe there was that discussion because Utah had signed Bert Fickland, who played well last year. And so they were like, okay, you can kind of go look around and whatever, because we're covered in the event that you aren't here. So maybe that's kind of how that unfolded. Who knows? This is an interesting thing that unfolded. Of course, Baker Mayfield kind of had some interesting things to say about his coach, former coach, Stefanski, Kevin Stefanski. He said, it's someone commenting on, the quarterback situation was a disaster when Kevin Stefanski was, you had Deshaun Watson and he failed, Baker Mayfield failed. So Baker Mayfield said failed is quite the reach, pal. Still waiting on a text call from him after I got shipped off like a piece of garbage. Can't wait to see you twice a year, coach. And I don't know if that's a dig or if it's, because it's kind of, it's someone kind of doing an evaluation of kind of the situation that Stefanski was in. But Baker Mayfield did get to the playoffs, and Baker Mayfield has played well. He certainly got in a very good situation in Tampa. So, was he a failure? See, I have a hard time with this because Deshaun Watson, I think, was one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL before he got to Cleveland. And for whatever reason, he just it just didn't work out. Now Kevin Stefanski, I think, made a lot of good improvement. I mean, he did a lot of good things. I think he did a lot. There was a lot of failure there, a lot of struggle there, but man, there was good too. And I think a lot of people look at that and say, oh, okay, we're going to give you a second chance. It's not like it wasn't like the death knell for his career. And again, we'll go back to some of these other coaches who have been in bad situations. And so Kevin Stefanski, I think, is well respected in the NFL, and he's going to get another shot. Now, the one thing that that I learned in my career was you don't burn your bridges, right? With the coaches. And clearly you can see this because the coach that you burn the bridge with today and he leaves probably is going to be your coach again down the road somewhere else. So don't ever burn your bridges. I was taught that from day one. And so when because coaching is interesting. When I got in the NFL, I expected all the coaches to be amazing and incredible, and all of them weren't. A lot of them were with an organization for various reasons, but they all and I'm talking about assistants. You have to have a good coordinator. You have to have a good special teams coach. You have to have a good O-line coach. But there's some other kind of positional, tight end coach, maybe not so much. Wide receiver, running back. They don't have to be the very best coaches in the league. And some of them are. Some of them develop into great coaches down the road, but some of them don't. Some of them are, you just wonder how the heck did you get this job, because you're not very good. But even if you feel that way, you never say it. Like you never ever say anything bad about a coach. And I had a coach that I did not get along with, and it was the only time in my career that I ever said anything about a coach. And I thought when he was hired, I was just elated. It was Jim Zorn when I played with the Detroit Lions. You got hired as a quarterback coach. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Left-handed quarterback, played in the league for a long time, and we did not get along. It was oil and water. And I just, it was a bad situation. And I expressed, and to this day expressed that, did not like the guy, did not work well, and there's a lot of reasons and a lot of good reasons and what have you. But, I wish him well in his life. And so later on, I had an opportunity to go to the Seattle Seahawks, and Mike Holmgren was there, and so was Jim Zorn. And I didn't end up going to the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm sure 100% of it was because of Jim Zorn. Regardless, don't burn your bridges. Although it was really worth it for me to burn the bridges in that situation. I'm not gonna lie. I felt, yeah. So this will be fun for Baker and, of course, Kevin Stefanski, and it'll just get legs. Like, this is something that people are going to talk about, and there's some feud, something going on, just like LaFleur and Ben Johnson. It's fascinating. All right, hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, none other than we're going to have a little lunch with Herman Moore, one of the best wide receivers ever in the NFL and a former teammate of mine, when the Down and Dirty continues.
Circulon C1 Series Clad with Scratch Defense Non-Stick. The luxury and confidence of premium clad stainless steel meets Scratch Defense Extreme Non-Stick that won't scratch, ever. With an ultra-thick aluminum core for high-performance heating. Maximize cooking, minimize cleaning. Discover the unmatched durability and elegance of clad stainless steel. Scratch-free, worry-free, forever.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com. The grinder mentality that Randy and Brent Habert built into 44 Pro runs deep within our team. Every member shares a passion for the craft, the game, and most importantly, the player. When you step onto the field with a 44 Pro custom glove, you'll feel the difference. It's not just a glove, it's a 44 Pro. Crafted with dedication, made for performance, and built to last. Get your custom glove today at 44pro.com and experience the 44 Pro difference. That's 44pro.com, 44 Pro.
At Matt Piffle, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mappiffle.com and start celebrating your story today.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could be a part of our show. I love doing this, and I love this part of the show, I think, more than anything in the world. It's when I have guests. And, of course, my favorite guest in the world is none other than legendary Detroit Lion and NFL Hall of Fame, you're a Hall of Famer in my mind. Herman Moore joins the show right now, all the way from Michigan. Where exactly in Michigan are you, Herman? Are you
in this day and age, man? I don't know if I want to give out where I'm located. It's
okay,
just,
that's fine.
It's just one of those things. No, I'm in Southeast Michigan.
Okay, good. All right. You look good, and we were talking about your hair offline here for a minute, and you I guess my question, I don't know why I'm so fascinated with your hair on your head here. If you grew out your hair, one, what would it look? Would you have gray in your hair? Do you have gray at this point in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, your beard doesn't look too gray.
Yeah, no, it's gray. It's just because of the lighting and all those things. But no, I came into the league. If you look at my rookie cards, which are the iconic rookie cards, and they have the high top fade, and I have the part in it, which was pretty popular back then. Put a line in your hair.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Scott, we talked offline, and I mentioned to you, I said, Kid and Play. And you go, who the heck is Kid and Play?
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even be on your show if you don't know who Kid and Play is. And I said House Party. Then you didn't know what House Party was.
None of
Scott, come on, man. You're not that far removed. I know, Bill, I know you. I know you.
Do you know what a bowl cut is?
I know what a bowl cut is. Yeah, they used to take the bowl, put it on, and put it around. We used to do that. But see, if you don't fade it where it blends,
right,
then you get kicked out of the kingdom in the hood. You can't have a bowl cut. You got to have it faded.
Yeah, well, Mark Davis, you need to tell him about it. The owner of he has the bowl cut. It looks good.
Scott, what about you, man?
Is that you?
I'm gonna ask you this: have you ever done anything? Come on, that's what I'm talking about right there. Look at that. That's thick hair. That's the Moore brand of hair right there. There it is. And if you look at my rookies, man, I look the same. But see, if I get that side profile, bam.
So see? could you do that today if you grew it out?
No, I'd have a hole in the middle. That's what they call that hole in the middle. Like it's thin here. Yeah. It'll be gray on the side. I can grow it here, and it's thinner just here, but it's still there. But then in the back, it's a little suspect.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, I think it would be fun to kind of look at some of these big plays that happened over the weekend in the NFL playoffs and kind of it would be fun to get kind of your take on it from a wide receiver perspective, mine as a quarterback. So we're gonna show a couple of clips here of some like monumental plays in a couple of games. First one is DJ Moore with the Bears, and of course Caleb Williams, and it was kind of that crushing blow to the Bears in their season. So here's the play right here, and they're kind of at the 50-yard line. It's kind of the play of the game in my opinion. From they get any further down, they're gonna kick a field goal, win the game, and it was kind of this over route by the wide receiver. And as a quarterback, you're looking at this, and it goes from too high to single high, right? So there's that single high safety. And so you're kind of feeling the quarterback can see the hole right there. At least
you're stretching the safety.
Yeah. but it's you know, it's still it's one of those gray area throws where it's like it's indecisive, and you know how you always have to play where it's decisive, and the receiver kind of goes over the top. Now, from my perspective, because here's the thing, you have to throw the ball with some anticipation because it's down the field, right? It's not a short throw, so you're trying to throw to this window, and you're hoping that the receiver kind of sees that same window right there, and you have to release it early. And it felt like the receiver wasn't completely sure of where he should have gone on the route. He's like, "Well, I'm supposed to be right here, but that safety's right in that spot where I'm supposed to be." But as the quarterback, you're like, the other option there as a quarterback, if it's kind of blurry and not clear, where it's just got to be so clean and so clear. When it's a gray area throw like that, it's like you got to move off of it. You got to go check it down. You got to do something. Got to run because you're the game's on the line right here, and you don't want to have that happen. Now, tell me what you're thinking as in this situation as a wide receiver.
Okay, so if we go back to it, especially the one from the end zone, which is I think the best view that gives you the opportunity to look at it based on what Caleb Williams was looking at. You and I are familiar. There's different ways in which you can run routes, right? So when you look at DJ Moore, and where I'm gonna get you to go, I want you to pause it right about there.
Yeah.
Right. When you pause it here, there's a couple things that I see. Your quarterback has a couple options. You're putting stress on the safety. You have a vertical going behind him, and you got one breaking in front of him. So he's got to make a decision. But the safety passes it off, and he basically says, "I'm going to take the shallower guy, and you're going to take the deeper guy." Of course, the quarterback can't see that or know that, but there's no duress here. There's no pressure. So he sees the entire field. There's an opportunity to throw this ball a little bit shorter, so the receiver doesn't have to run to that area because, when you're leading, look where the safety is. The safety already has a beeline. He's coming downhill. And if you put that either on him or just slightly over the backer and you throw it a little bit shorter, then the receiver has the better opportunity to get it. But when you lead him, now it's a first to the ball. It's like whoever's going to get there first. And in my opinion, the safety has the better angle. He's running already downhill, so he's going to get there quicker than the receiver's going to get there. So I had a different take on this. Sometimes you've heard where we do the lazy route, where you intentionally are not running it as hard, and you're forcing the defense to have to define or declare a certain position. So it comes down to what was this play really, right? So we can have our subjective opinion on what should have happened because we're both looking at it from a different vantage point. But if all of a sudden that Ben Johnson comes out and DJ Moore comes out and says, "Hey, you know what? This is supposed to be a lazy route, a kind of more of a sail over the middle, and he's supposed to put it more on me and is a safer throw."
Right.
Then who do you blame, right? So the blame can shift immediately based on that. But because we don't know the entire context of it, it makes it difficult. So it was interesting to hear you say that because I actually defended the receiver because I said, you know what, to me, this just seemed like this was a play that the quarterback could make because we've heard how many times a quarterback can see something and they slow the receiver down or they throw it to a place to where they know the defender isn't going to be. On that one, I just thought it was a bad throw.
So, clearly clearly both these guys are not on the same page. I'm just telling you when you're back, because like you said, it feels like he needed to be in the hole where the ball was, but the safety there was nothing that threatened the safety. And if you're a quarterback and you have safeties that are sitting on routes like that, you have to get off of that just to begin with. And you have to, like I said, it's got to really be clear and well-defined, especially in that situation. You got the ball just past the 50-yard line. You only have to get another 12, 15 yards to get in. You don't need a big chunk, big play in that situation. It's an early down. And if we could go back to it one more time, because you'll see how, and you'll just shake your head. And I think every single Bear fan in the world will shake their head right now. And this is part of the maturing process for a quarterback like, I can't remember it. Caleb Williams. And because he's a guy who's got a big arm, right? And so it's always so much of it is always downfield, and he's made some big throws in the playoffs here. Zach, can you go back again just one more time? I'm sorry that we keep asking you to do this. But it's interesting. So go back to the end zone. So just leave it right there. So if you go back, keep going to where, yeah, right there. Stop. Okay. If you look at this route, first of all, you have a guy right over the center, and he's short. He's like right at the opening of the C in the logo.
Yeah, your safety outlet.
That like when you see the safety ahead of your wide receiver here and he's not getting depth, it's just a dead route right now. If he's even with him or even past him, then it's a home run play right here. And the only thing for me is if the receiver ran into the open area but came back to the ball, ran across the field, tried to get himself kind of positioned in front of the safety where he's kind of going on a steeper angle, and it just doesn't look well defined. And so it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, wide receiver, quarterback in this situation. You just should never throw the ball there, and you just throw it to the check down here. He's going to get probably a first down or close to it, and again, just keeping that momentum going because Chicago had all the momentum at this point, or even throw it to the outside. Right. If you see the wide receiver, because that corner is way off on the outside. I mean, you're actually better in this play to work the outside of the field to begin with, because the slot receiver on the right side looks like he might be running a corner route. You have kind of a hitch, and that's an easy combination to work there. That corner stays off. You just throw the hitch. If he jumps the hitch, you got all this wide open space on the right side. That to me is the better throw, the higher advantage. And this is the part where, I'm sure Caleb Williams, if you ever watch this film, he's just like, throw it to the check down. It's not clear. Just throw it to the check down, live for the next down type of situation here. But if you are going to throw it down the field, the wide receiver's got to come up. He's got to get in front of, and I know this is like advanced football right here, because you see how the safety is where he's supposed to be running. What if the guy just stopped right there and he just threw it to him, almost like like you're kind of saying, it's, and I think that's what you were saying before. That's really advanced football if you can do that. But this play should have never happened, regardless of whether it was wide receiver or the quarterback. All right, let's go to the next play. And I'm really curious about your opinion on this and what you think about this one. Okay, this was in the Bills game with Brandon Cooks, and this was a third down. And of course, this turned out to be a huge play, because if they get this first down here, they're in field goal position. They can win the football game with a field goal. And again, it's a turnover. And I'm just trying to. So I believe it's 3rd and 10. Anyways, So I don't know if we get another look at this one. Maybe we'll probably will here. That was a sped up look. So Josh Allen throws the ball. Yeah, right here. Receiver goes up. It looks like. Would you say he has possession there? And then he doesn't. Right, and that's called an interception. What do you think about that one?
Well, I think it's not clear. So you're going to have to go back and obviously this goes to replay, depending on what was called first. I don't think it's enough to overturn it being called from being an interception to, being either, an incomplete pass or a catch and down by contact. That's one of those really gray ones where, depending on what the first call is, because it's so close and it could go either way, it's almost a coin toss, that, you have to live with what the call is on the field. I know a lot of people may not like it. You're going to have inherent biases to it, because if you're a fan favorite or you're a part of that team, then right, you're going to want it to lean your way. But I think that one could have gone either way, to be honest. But I thought it was an interception without complete total control. And typically for a receiver to say that, I know that's tough, but you don't want to have it come down to plays like that. But that was a great one.
And you're giving up your people, Herman.
No. What was your take on that? You thought it was a catch down by contact?
Based on the definition of the rule, like if you go by the rule, you go and you look at it and you go, yeah, that's an interception, right? I don't even think and you can slow it down to a point where you go, the question is like, what is possession, right? Is it, what's clear possession? Because it looks like even the DB sticks his hands in late. See, like it looks like, okay, the wide receiver has it there. He only has one hand. The DB only has one hand on the ball. It feels like, to me, the wide receiver, like right here, he catches it. Boom. To me, that feels like reception, and then goes to the ground, and then it gets ripped out after he's gone to the ground. I can really see where, and again, I totally get the bias thing, because when you're the team that loses, or you're a fan of that team, you're just like, you just feel jilted. You're just like, "Why, how could they call that against us? And how could they?" And I think part of it wasn't even that that it was called the way it was. I think it was that it was just so flippantly just passed over. And I think they're, because Sean McDermott calls a timeout. He's like, "Look, could you explain this to me just a little bit? I don't quite follow your logic here." That seemed to be like a really big play in the game, and a lot of the argument is we don't want to get the game bogged down by overanalyzing every last little play. But that was a change of possession play. It was a big play, a big moment in the game, which I can understand. And I think Sean McDermott had a point there with just an explanation. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be overturned, but certainly an explanation. I just hate to be in that situation where you're the Bills, and I know it's not, one game doesn't win or lose a game for you, but boy, it sure could have changed the fortunes for the Bills had that game or that play actually gone differently. So, but the question to me though, Herman, is not necessarily was it intercept, because I'm like, it was probably an interception that looked like it, but how do you define, I guess, possession, and because now I started looking at all these plays and I go, well, that almost looked like that could have been an interception or a turnover or something. And so I guess it's like, how do you determine it? Because guys are always around the ball, hands, defensive players, offensive players, when someone makes a catch, and I just, I guess it would be a hard thing for me to understand, what possession really looks like.
Yeah, in there lies the problem, and is the defining piece of possession. We get into the complication of taking a step, making football moves, controlling to the ground, and now you have all these intricacies that go into determining just what we typically, anyone who's a part of the game or a sports fan, it seems like that would be very simple. That should be something that's pretty simply. That explanation isn't really necessary. As a catch, is it either a catch or is not a catch? And when we get into all those complicated components, then it becomes interpretation. Then you bring in subjectivity, and you removed all the objectivity. And when you have to be so precise, then the rule just doesn't apply each time. And sometimes it's going to create ambiguity. It's going to create uncertainty in terms of the call. And I think that's what we're seeing with the officiating right now. If you look at how often a play's call, an official runs in definitively and they make a call, and then they see another one that calls something slightly different, and everyone's questioning one another, like, did I really see what I saw? It's not even really, the confidence isn't even there to see what's seeing in real time. It's really deferred back to the replay on those.
So this brings me to my next point, because it's I think pass interference is
my favorite.
Well, the rule and the word that always sticks out to me is significantly, right? Significantly impedes their progress, their ability to catch the ball. And so you have to interpret significant if you're the official. Like, what's it? And again, this game, there were a couple of pass interference calls, and you go, what is pass interference? And it's like, well, if you grab their arms, or you hold them back, or you do, there's certain movements that I guess they're looking for in those situations. But this is, I guess for me, it's like, I think it's hard to even have this conversation because the official just has to make a judgment call, right? There's no hard line. This is exactly what pass interference is. It's like, this is what I think it is, or it looked like it was that way in that situation. But what I'm concerned with is the game gets down to, let's just throw a ball up down the sideline and just, 50-50 ball, let just, and it's like that's our strategy because there's a good probability we're going to get a pass interference call. I mean, it feels like you could almost call pass interference on every single play. And I know you were a player, and believe me, I love this. You had an advantage. You always had an advantage. I don't know that there was a DB in the NFL that you didn't have an advantage over because of your height, your athleticism, your ability to jump. And believe me, as a quarterback, man, that's unbelievable to just know. I don't care what the defense is. Herman Moore is always open. And so for me, it was like, throwing to you was not a 50-50 ball. Throwing to you was like a 95-5 kind of percentage. But, can you describe pass interference to me? Am I crazy for thinking, it's lazy football and why would you want to just put the balance of the game on the shoulders of the officials where, they can get it wrong?
You know what was most disturbing and bothers me the most when it comes to pass interference and even some of the play calling, depending on what part of the game it's in, it's like you got to let them play, right? You've heard that rule. Well, you don't call it at that time in that period in the game.
Right.
If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. If you start to create where it's opinionated or it's game situation and circumstances, the rules change. Where is that written in there? You can't sit there and say because this is such a critical time of the game, you can't call that play. No, if it's a penalty, it's a penalty. I don't care what part of the game it is. When I see pass interference, is if on the first one that we showed, at the end, there is a tug, there's a grab, there's impediment, there's keeping the receiver from bringing his hand up. So yeah, that's something that is taught. You have to also say, you know what, there's a responsibility for not only the player, but also for the coaches and the teachers and the people that are training them to do these things. How often are defensive backs told? And if there's a defensive back that wants to come in here and argue this, they're told to do certain things to try and get away with it. But when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you can't plead, I didn't do that. Well, they're told to grab one hand because if you can keep one hand from getting on the ball, that's going to keep the receiver from having it's got to be a one-handed or improbable catch. That's the tactic. The receiver, when a guy was close to me, it was to not push off. It was to throw my shoulder or my elbow or something inside to kind of give him that tug to give that separation.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm bigger than that guy, that's an advantage. That's a tool. And when you get caught, you get caught. That's all it is. Pass interference is pass interference. If you see it, call it. If you don't see it, then don't call it. That just means you missed a call. And I think pass interference should be reviewable. Because it's easy to determine whether or not it's pass interference. Once you slow it down like anything else, pass interference may be pass interference and holding and late hits and all that may be the easiest plays that should not take more than 30 seconds, a minute at the most, to determine whether or not you're going to call that good or bad.
So you talk about calling it all the time. I mean, you look at the national championship game; those officials, they just choked on they're like, we're not calling anything. We're not calling, But the one that gets me the most is the Hail Mary at the end of the game.
I was just ready to say that.
Like that is the most egregious. Like it's just like it's a street brawl. All bets are off. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And they don't ever call. I don't know that I've ever seen. I'd love to find a statistic if it's ever been called in the game because they just don't call it for whatever reason. And I think you're right, because there are situations like I don't want to be the one to determine the outcome of this game. So when it gets toward the end of the game and it gets close, I'm not going to get. I'm curious. Do you like the idea of going into a game and just knowing like I know this officiating crew calls it a certain way. And so, going into a game, what you can get away with and what not. I mean, do you feel like some crews are just kind of all over the place in how they view the rule? Or do you like where an officiating crew is like, hey, they're going to call it tight, but at least we know that, right? Going into the game and they're consistent about it and they're consistent all the way through the whole game. Or would you rather just have a crew going in that just, you don't know what you're going to get?
It's interesting because we used to get those reports to find out which ones let you play a little bit more, which ones are more apt to call certain things, and then we were alerted also as receivers to say, you know what, I would go over to the officials and say, this guy likes to grab, like keep an eye on him on my routes. I'm coming in and out of breaks, or he's doing these type of things, and I'm sure the defensive backs would do the same thing, because you have to also give them some opportunity to say, listen, I need you to keep a little bit closer look on this, which means you got to govern yourself as well, right? But again, it goes back to this piece. It has to be consistency across the board. Officiating is too critical nowadays, and the fact that we have so many cameras doing so many things, it's just no way for us to be getting that many things wrong. And we are being very, again, I go back to the objectivity and subjectivity of things. We can't say we're going to use it when it keeps the game moving. We're going to ignore plays and calls because it keeps the game flowing, and we don't want to slow down the entertainment. But then we're gonna penalize, or we're gonna make it be a problem for those that it means the most to, which are the guys on the field, right, who are trying to do these things. And so the NFL's got a little bit of a conundrum, and they have a little bit of an issue that they have to resolve. And as they continue to change how things are defined in plays and catches and calls, what I see is that it's creating a lot of issues in terms of consistency and calls in the officiating.
How much time you got today? Because I got a bunch more I want to talk to you about. You good to go here? Okay.
I got time.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back. You're listening to the Down and Dirty. I have an interesting statistic for you that relates to you. I want to share with you. I'm going to surmise it, so I'm not going to give you the specifics. I think you'll find this interesting, and we'll have a conversation about it when the Down and Dirty returns here on YouTube.
You probably get unwanted emails almost every single day.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Have you ever wondered why so many pet parents are choosing to have virtual vet appointments? Online veterinary care is making it easier than ever to get expert advice for your pet. Our professionals are not only experts in managing urgent concerns, but also in providing top-notch preventative health care. We're proud to connect pet owners to a vast network of licensed veterinary professionals, ready to address any immediate concerns and expand access to pet care. Book your first appointment today.
Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join us. Like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff. My favorite part of the week, of course, is going on right now, and we're so honored to have legendary NFL wide receiver Herman Moore joining us. Of course, he's my favorite teammate when I played in the NFL. We had a very interesting relationship, and at times we try to describe this to people, and I don't know that people, they probably listen and they're probably, courteous, but I don't know that they really believe when we tell them this. And it's a true thing. It's a very true thing Like we had an ability to communicate. It's almost like we were twins. I mean, I can see the resemblance. Like we look like we could be brothers. Yeah. I would look like you if I could you imagine my hair on your head though? Like that.
We started swapping out features, man. We'd
Yeah.
make an ugly child. Like
We
it's
definitely
yeah.
would. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that we didn't do that. But we communicated in an insane way. Like it was just a look. Often it wasn't anything more than a look. It wasn't even like, hey, we had all these intricate hand signals and we're doing all these different things. It was like and we had this I want to just say literally a telepathic communication ability that was not words. It was maybe slight body language, whatever. It was just these energy waves we're sending, from the center out to the wide receiver. But I'm just telling you, and I know Herman will back me up on this 100%. It was a real thing. I never experienced it with anyone else, but we were just on the same wavelength.
Right. And it didn't matter the circumstance. I tell that to people all the time when I'm looking at it. I don't have to really remember a play that's popped up on the screen. And I'll say, I know what Scott's looking at right here. And I know where he's looking to go with this. And even if you were going to a different player, it was still a different type of an aura because I knew what you were trying to set up or you're trying to do. So there was a patience piece that I started to learn over time. You had me, Johnny, and Brett Pearman already, bickering, and we're already in your ear trying to do all these things to get on this page with you to get you to throw us the football. But ultimately, what we all did realize is that you were going to find us and we didn't have to do much. And you and I in particular, because there was a trust factor, because, with you, I knew in the critical moments you were going to come to me. I knew in those times you expected me to be in a certain space or to be open. And even if you threw it and I was covered, you threw it because the probability or the odds were in our favor. And we would go off script here and there, but within the limitations of that, they gave us the ability to do that. If you see the opportunity, you take it, you hold the accountability. That's what, dynamic duos, guys that you say that are twins and you're interlocked and you're in that same zone. You know that's the best way to go. It's not about the playbook. It's about situational football.
Yeah. I remember I'd throw like a touchdown pass or something and it was a running play. And the line coach would get all bent sideways, like they can't be throwing a ball in that situation. We're going to be downfield. We're going to be like this whole RPO stuff they do now. Like we did that stuff, just innately. It was never coached. It was never discussed. And then it started to become a thing. It's like, hey, if you have a running play on and you just see the hitch out there and it's wide open, whatever, just throw the ball and. But it didn't start that way. And because then people go, well, why'd you do this? And you go, well, look, it's obvious why we did, it was just like one of those things, but
alert check with me.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Yeah. So I wonder, so Chrissy, your assistant, we were having a conversation.
Business partner, and she's our CMO because she'll get mad if you
Sorry.
say that.
Yeah. No,
she'll beat me up after that. So Scott, you don't want me with pop knots and stuff all over my head.
No, I don't. And she's a fireball, so I don't want to get the wrath of that. But she was talking about, and I thought this was interesting about how the records and the production that we had as an offense, and even specifically you, like you were, you set records in the NFL in receiving completions, all these things. And there was this period of time when we were playing in the mid 90s where you say, and there were wide receivers that got more attention. There were wide receivers that maybe people thought were better, but no, there's nobody. I'll just tell you, there's nobody I would rather throw the ball to than to you. And you were every bit as good as any one of the wide receivers at that time. And there were some great ones. I mean, there's Chris Carter, there's Jerry Rice, there's, you could argue some of these guys is Isaac Bruce, and some of these guys had a lot of production, but no one during that time had more production than you. And recently there have been a couple of players who have been inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. And one is Sterling Sharp, and another is Terrell Davis. Great players, like phenomenal players, but had very brief careers. And when this happened, I'm just like, well, if longevity isn't a criteria for getting in the Hall of Fame, Herman Moore should be in the Hall of Fame. Because you had you been given more time, right? And that's really the argument for Sterling Sharp and Terrell Davis. Had they been given more time for whatever circumstances, they would have been, again, it's subjective. Well, they would have just been this, or they would have done that. And I can make that argument for you. Look, we got it taken away from us in Detroit. We had a tremendous offense. We had tremendous talent, and a coaching change came. A philosophy within the organization changed, and that whole thing was dismantled. And so I'm sitting here saying, I'm basically tooting your horn, by the way, but in all seriousness, not, it's just like, if these guys can get in the Hall of Fame, why can't Herman Moore? So how long should a player play to be actually considered to be a Hall of Fame player?
So I'm gonna walk it. I'm gonna start from the back, and then I'm gonna walk it forward towards my case and what I think is my end to why I should be doing that. And a lot of times people say, you shouldn't toot your own horn, you shouldn't make your own case, but history will be forgotten, and you'll be forgotten if you don't stand up, because if the others who are supposed to do it won't do it, then if not you, then who? So I am going to stand up for myself. I'll stand up for my legacy, and I'll challenge anyone on it. And you don't have to agree with me as a person. But when you talk about the chemistry and things changing, we came up in an era where it was really the precipice in the beginning of the passing era, right? It was really all about the running backs. That's when you had your 1,200, 1,500, 2,000-yard running backs on a regular, right? They're going out, they're setting the pace. Then you had complementary receiving games. But then you had those that had like the West Coast offense, which was pass first. So most of those guys you mentioned, Green Bay, Sterling Sharp, Michael Irvin, they were probably more the closest to the balanced style offense. And then you go out to San Fran, it was West Coast. It was a pass first offense. And these are the guys you're competing against. And yet in that time span, we were able to be a very first offense, which is nobody's going to deny that and doubt that. And then they have receivers who can compete with that in a passing game that had to be more than complementary. We had to be bailout a lot of times. And we also had to be on point to where we had to put up points, because you can't just get there just running the football. Everyone knows that. So when you move forward and you start to look at what we were able to accomplish, we were doing it. We had the consistency, and then it became about the dollars and cents. You start dismantling a team. So you can never have the consistency, whether it be offensive coordinator, whether it be the consistency of the same players or the same schematic piece that you're doing, but yet you're having to produce the exact same output. So put that on your table before you even get to that. Then for my case, I only played, yes, I played 12 years in the NFL, but if you go back and look at what that is, I only started 7 years. And after that, you can forget, you can roll the other 5 years into one and have still less than 1,000 yards, right? And that came because of rookie year. And then on the back end, it was basically, I was demoted and put into a third receiver position after I got injured and never gave back my starting position. So you can't have the same output when you're the number 3 guy. So your production is going to hit. So what's called, when you look at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I went through, because I'm a person that says, listen, in all fairness, let's look at how the criteria is defined. When you look at your Hall of Fame players, they judge it on longevity, is the way you pad your stats. So because they know so many guys can play 12, 15, 19 years and pad their stats, they start to go off into what they call peak years. Well, if you look at my peak years, I had at a minimum 5, but you can make a case for 7 years, which is 7 straight years. If you look at the average, it's over 1,000 yards, it's 80 some catches, it's 8 touchdowns, right? A season, 7 straight years, 4 Pro Bowls, 3 All Pros, right? 2 leading receiving titles for receptions, and more All Pros than only one guy, and that was Jerry Rice in the decades, right? And when you make these cases and you start to look at peak performance, you're never going to put me below 3. Maybe it's a stretch to put me at 4. And at that point, when everyone in front of me and everyone behind me is getting in, how do you justify that? How do you make the case for that? So I come in with objective data. You got to strip away team. You got to strip away this guy had a Super Bowl. I don't care if he had a Super Bowl. What did he do?
No.
You're not taking his team into the Hall of Fame. You're taking him. And I can't go if my team doesn't go to the playoffs. And I don't go as far as we go. So, I used to get angry about it. And I said, let me go do for my own solace and for my own mentality. Let me do the homework and let me do the work that the lazy people won't do. And when you go and you do that, then it's like, if I can't get in and you put in these other players, then, I can sit quiet about it, or I can say, you know what, go do your homework. And I'm saying, go do your homework.
I just know there are a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame. I go, again, a very subjective process, one that, seems right on one side and doesn't on another. It almost feels like the people who should really decide who goes into the Hall of Fame are the people that were on the field, the people that, and so much of it is writers, so much it is, they have I've had a lot of people through the years call me when someone's being considered and they said, what was it like to play against this guy? And it's like, so you're the one with the vote and you're asking me what I think about this play. Like you're trying to, it's like, cause you don't know, cause you didn't play and you didn't know. I'm just telling you from the perspective of a quarterback, where you have to trust someone when it's a wide receiver. You got to know that they're reading the coverage right, that they're running the route the right way versus the coverage. And it was like, I cannot say this about another receiver. And I played with some great ones. I mean, we had some great ones in Detroit, and I loved Johnny and Brett. I mean, they were awesome. Like I'd throw the ball to those guys any day of the week, and around a lot of other really good ones too. In my time, but you were the only one and that was always open. Like you were such a unique talent in the NFL, and you were, and it was a remark, and you might say a guy like Randy Moss maybe he has that kind of ability, maybe Calvin Johnson, same type of thing. It was just a different build of a wide receiver, but it was fun. Like I'll bet I could have thrown a football to you 50 times a game.
Yeah, and we were both got kicked out of the kingdom.
Well, I know that.
You're not running the football, man. You can't be here in Detroit.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying it's sad that people don't fully understand, appreciate, can see that, because I lived it. I know what it was, and the thing that I think is, and it's not so much a frustration, because there's just a lot of things that are out of your control in football, but that part of it was incredible, and it's unfortunate that there wasn't more of it. But you get, and I think people will go, well, is it unfortunate we didn't get to see Sterling Sharp more? And it's like, and I don't disagree with that, because I think there are a lot of situations that circumstances kind of limited the ultimate success of some people, and some people were blessed to be in, the perfect situation for a long time. Look at, I played with Dan Marino. It was unbelievable, Herman. Like watching him throw football every day was just a special part of my career. And he had the same coach, the same system, and a lot of the same players for pretty much his entire career. And it had a huge impact on the ultimate success that Dan Marino had. Because he was incredible where he was, and I'm sure he would have been a great player wherever he was. But man, it sure helped him tremendously because he was in this system, and he had a coach that goes, why in the world would I ever take the ball out of Dan Marino's hands? And that, what a great, thing to be a part of. And so I hope people, and I don't think you're tooting your own horn, but I hope people can really appreciate a lot of the great part of the history of the NFL that maybe is forgotten or maybe is minimized for whatever reason. And it should be remembered. I don't know how we do it, but I'm sure there's a lot of players that have similar situations that you've had, and myself as well.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate that. But, there are guys that I would never, ever talk negative about like a guy. Sterling Sharp was actually the guy I most favored when during my playing time, because I thought he was the best receiver in the game. And Jerry Rice is the GOAT. He's statistically the greatest player in the receiving position. But if you look at from a talent standpoint, Randy Moss does things that Jerry doesn't do, and vice versa. Calvin does things that other players could never do and does. And we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, but we all have that piece that becomes a dominant piece that defines us. And at that point, like I always tell people, the big receiver wasn't coveted as much. You're 6'1", 6'2". Even Michael Irvin, people think he's tall. I mean, 6'2", or so, 6'2 and a half. Jerry Rice is 6'1", 6'2". They weren't 6'4" and 6'5" wide receivers, and you didn't know what to do with us. And it changed how they drafted defensive backs. So there was a change of how the NFL shifted in terms of coveting bigger receivers, and also making a shift at the safety position and also at the cornerback position. So to that, I say, man, it is what it is. And I just, I think you always want those that you played with and played for to really carry that mantle for you and do it. And when they don't, then you do fall off a little bit, and you're not as known for your accomplishments or appreciated. But it's got to come from those that you did it for. They have to carry that up. And like I said, in my case, for those that won't do it, I have to do it myself, and I'm okay to do that.
All right, I want to shift gears for a minute. Talk about some things that are happening this weekend in the NFL championship weekend. The Broncos crushing news with Bo Nix being out for the rest of the playoffs. Have Jared Stidham, not played a lot, has some familiarity with Sean Payton. What do you think it will take for the Broncos to win this game this weekend with a backup quarterback? How would you handle that situation with a guy like that?
Well, one thing I would do is I wouldn't go ultra conservative. That's typically what most teams will do. They'll basically go short passes to intermediate passes. They'll go running game and be manageable. You want your defense to get you favorable field position, to give you opportunities to put points on the board, so on and so forth. No, you try and you take your shots when your shots are there. Everyone in there, you got to back up quarterbacks. He's in the NFL. He's not playing collegiate football. He's not an amateur sport. He's your backup professional. He's your safety gate in the event that someone goes down. So keeping with that, Sean Payton is a guy that he's an offensive minded person. So I know he's going to figure out ways to mitigate potential things going wrong. But at the same time, how do you keep your offense fluid and efficient but effective? And defensively, you put a little bit more pressure on your defense to say, we can't give up the big plays. Even if they get long drives, we'll live with that, because we won't get into situations where there's a lot of swapping of points, and we can stay in a manageable game. So that's the approach I'm thinking that these teams are going to take. But at this point, I wouldn't. You're at the championship conference game, right? You don't cower to that. If anything, you dig in deeper.
Did you ever, like in a game when you would score almost on the first play, like you throw a long touchdown pass? And I'm curious how I have an opinion about it, but did that help you? Did that kind of keep, did it or was it a detriment? It's, because you didn't get into a rhythm. Just tell me how you feel about scoring a touchdown, like a long pass, right out of the gates in a game.
Oh, I love that, because you set the tone in that we're going to be an attacking offense. Any offense that is passive and allows a defense to dictate what they do, you're already lost. You already know that. Like when we see our frustration came because we weren't attacking more, and especially the things that were easier, right? You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. It's things that we could have done were a lot easier, but we chose to take a different path sometimes. But having said that, it was it makes everyone stay honest. And I know that's sometimes under and overstated. But it does. And it gives you a certain level of confidence that that's all you got to do. Think about it. If I got a quarterback, all I need is protection up front. Can you throw the football? Your receivers are still the same receivers. Those are playmakers are still the same playmakers. Go make a play. And I love the pressure of go make a play.
Yeah. And I like the idea, and I agree with you, the aggressiveness, you gotta go after teams. Sometimes it just felt like to me when you just have this big play, you hadn't found your rhythm yet as an offense, and it kind of gave you this false sense of where things were. And so I like the rhythm. I like filling out the defense and kind of having that sustained mindset. And so sometimes I felt like it kind of could be a detriment. It's like it's exciting, you score, but do you get in a rhythm? Because all of a sudden it's like you're on the field for one play, and then you go off the field, and then your defense is on the field, and then it takes a while before you get back on it, and sometimes it just felt like it was a problem.
So
All right.
let me ask you this real quick, Scott.
Okay,
Before
yeah.
you go on, you talk about rhythm. Rhythm, we talk about it, but that's the anatomy of your team. You got to know what really makes your team go. If we weren't, I don't think we had such an explosive minded team. We would chop away, but our reward, we wanted you to know that we wanted to go for the juggler. We wanted you to take a chance or take a couple of shots. So we drew the defense in because we knew they were playing a little bit softer, a little bit deeper sometimes. But when they came in, the rhythm is important, but sometimes you can establish rhythm by getting the jitters out, by getting on top of a team, and then you can settle into your rhythm. So I think it's all about knowing your team, and it's all about knowing the culture of what you're established there.
Yeah. So a lot of coaching changes in the NFL. 10 openings, most I think tied for I don't know. They're setting records this year on coaching openings. When do you think it's time to move on from a coach? You had Sean McDermott, a lot of success. Mike Tomlin, a lot of success. John Harbaugh, a lot of success, and all of them either stepped down or were let go. Where is that moment, that time when it's time to move on from a guy?
I think it gets complicated, and I'm gonna dial it back. I'm a business guy now. I love now that I'm older. I'm innovative. I think a little bit differently than I did before. And these franchises in the NFL, I think they need to look at a different system and way to do it, because all you're doing is you're recycling coaches. So you already know that's the formula. You know that's what you're going to do. Well, why not call up a team and say, hey, we're going to send you our coach. You send us your coach, because that's the coach we think is a better fit. Think about how that goes over, the transparency that happens with that. And some people may look at that and listen to what we say and we talk like that. Like, I like to step outside of the traditional sense of things. The NFL is old. It's old. It's tried it. You start to see these coaches bring in more players. They bring in a different philosophy. They've gone from the old guys to the younger guys. There's transitioning that's happening, but you know where it's not happening? It's not happening upstairs in terms of the protocol and the process. If you change the process, you already know Mike Tomlin's going to get a job. He wants a job. Well, if he's got to sit out because of his contract obligation, so be it. McDermott, he's going to get another job. Harbaugh, we knew it wasn't going to take long. It was a matter of how long does he want to wait before he makes an answer. You already know these things are going to happen. Pair them up. Like, if you're going to go ahead and do that, I get what I want. You get what you want. You don't have to tarnish a coach's, history or their background and everything that they've established in terms of their legacy. Make it to where now let's transition that piece, because you know what? It's smoke and mirror. We know this guy's going to end up somewhere. If he's not head coach, he's a defensive coordinator. If he's not a defensive coordinator, he's a special assistant to the head coach or something, and so on and so forth. Right? It's just, to me, it becomes like just kind of boring and kind of stereotypical and traditional. And it's like, dude, this is just semantics that creates drama. So we have something to talk about on the radio. We don't have to do that. Let's do something different. Right?
It's almost like you could have a trade period for head coaches.
Absolutely.
Like you have the players, there's the trade deadline, or whatever. And there's a certain, and maybe what you do is you as you go through the season and your season is kind of going down the toilet, you go, we're looking to trade our coach. Does anyone else want? Because I would think you look at, and I used this example earlier in the show. I was talking about some of this stuff and how Tony Dungy was a great coach, and of course we played against him when he was in Tampa, and he couldn't win a Super Bowl there, and had some really good teams. And then John Gruden slides in and wins a Super Bowl, and then Tony Dungy goes off to Indianapolis and wins there and has a great career. And I think both of those organizations are happy with that. And so, they go, hey, for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel like it's totally right here. And I actually love that idea. I absolutely, that might have been the smartest thing you've said today, Herman.
Come on, man. That's no, I think about, you just don't give me enough time to do it. But listen, it's practical, right? And if you look at how it works, it becomes another interesting period of time. And then you don't even have to go an entire season with a coach that you're stuck with. You can go, hey, I'm going to bring this guy in. We're going to swap out, just like you do trade deadlines. Have a coach trading, time period. Like it saves face. But I think also you look at all the coaches that are out there right now. You're talking about 10 vacancies and openings. Do you think those are all bad coaches? No. Some just didn't have the pieces. Some just didn't have the right, things in place. The systems didn't work, whatever it may be. But it wasn't because they were all just coaches at the end of their reigns and they no longer can coach anymore. And then you're going to bring in somebody that, is going to be green and maybe it's hit or miss. You're willing to take that? No, I'm going to go with one of these guys. If I'm trying to build a championship team, I'm going to pick one of those guys that's tried and true and understands it before I go and just say, I'm just going to go somewhere else and just start over.
So I was going to ask you the question, which organization, if you were a head coach right now, would you want to go? But it's almost like it's fluid, right? I mean, it's maybe right now it's this one or maybe down the road. Is it ever Cleveland? Like, would you ever want to go and coach in Cleveland?
It depends on what my fanfare is as a coach, because I have to be able to be where I'm attracted. We already know some coaches will repel and some coaches will attract. And are you bringing in a coach that repels talent and destroys chemistry, culture, and team because it's their way and their legacy? Or do you bring in someone that's doing it the other way? And I'll say this to this point. When you talk about which ones are the most attractive jobs, a lot of people are immediately going to jump to certain teams, right? They're going to say Buffalo. They're going to say, Pittsburgh. They're going to say Baltimore. But they're going to say that for all different reasons. Some are because the pieces are in place. Some are going to say because of the culture. Some are going to say because they have this. And if I bring in a couple more things, a couple more pieces, I can then change the tide because I know exactly what's going to fit that team. So it's all the attractiveness of those teams, I think, vary. And if you're coming in and you're looking for longevity and job security, but you got a legendary name, you may go to a team and say, I'm going to walk out of here with $100 million or more because the pressure's not on me. Or are you going to step into the fire of pressure situations or going to teams that are at win now because the talent's already in place, or they see that it's going to pass up in a few years because, they've already got a little, tread on those tires, and you got to win now or never.
Well, wherever you go as this head coach, just bring me as like the backup quarterback. Like, I believe that's the best position in all of sports today. Pay me $4 or $5 million a year, for, I don't know, just 10, 12, whatever years. And I'll go and play, a couple of plays, some mop up, whatever. That's if you do that, I'll come play for you.
Well, I'll go play also if you have stacked wide receivers and you're set and you really they have no chance. You're good 1 through 4 and you're looking for a fifth guy. Yeah, I'm your guy. All I got to do is scout team and look team, so I'm good.
Yeah, love it. All right, that's all time we have today. So glad you could join us. Really appreciate it. Always great conversation. There you have it, folks. Herman Moore, legendary wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, and just an all-around good guy. So that's our show for today. I hope you have a great day. Whatever you do, we'll see you whenever we see you again. This has been the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell.